Great. All right, so let's kick off with an acknowledgement of country. I'm joining today from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung country in Melbourne, Naarm, where I live and work. And I'd like to acknowledge that we're all joining all around this continent from unceded Aboriginal land. And I'd like to thank and acknowledge the elders of the First Nations where I am and all around the country as well for looking after this country since the dream time, and extend that respect to traditional owners from the lands that you're joining from, and also to elders and other First Peoples who are here with us today. And we share this aim of looking after country, of course, and restoring a safe climate for current and future generations of all species. And thanks so much to those of you who've been sharing what country you're joining from in the chat as well. So again, if you have not come across us before, we are Climate Emergency Australia. We're a network of Australian councils that have declared a climate emergency. My name's Sally McAdams. I'm the coordinator of the network, and I will tell you a little bit more about how to connect with us and upcoming events that we've got on later on today. As I said, if I disappear, please carry on and I'll rejoin when I can. But our topic for today is councils and communities benefiting from renewable energy projects. And as I mentioned, this is a collaboration with Alliance. And we've got Thomasen Knight here today, who's the Regional Programs Manager from Alliance, and she'll tell you all about what they do. And we've also got Craig Watts, who's the CEO of Merredin in Western Australia, and Councillor David Meacheam from the Central Highlands in Tasmania as well, who are going to share some of their journeys with renewable energy projects in their regions. And I think it's probably worth saying that, as many of you will know, there's been a lot of movement in this space in the last 10 years or so. In 2019, the Australian government announced the establishment of the renewable energy zones with the goal of concentrating investment in generation and transmission of renewable energy in designated areas. And around the same time, a voluntary energy charter was also established to try to make sure that these new energy projects would benefit communities, because renewable energy projects can be controversial. And so today, I guess we have the opportunity to hear some real examples of communities and councils who've stepped up to play a role in shaping the outcomes of these local projects for their regions. So I'm going to hand over in just a second to Thomasen Knight. As I said, she's the Regional Programs Manager at Alliance. They support local leaders to do this stepping up and shaping work. And she's going to tell us about their Regional Leaders Network and Forum and a whole lot more. If you have any questions as we go, I will ask you to put your questions in the chat and we'll come back to them at the Q&A session at the end, unless you have something really burning, in which case put your hand up and call out. But yeah, as I said, other than that, do put your questions in the chat so you don't forget about them. Okay, so Thomasen, would you like me to keep clicking through these snapshots, or would you like to share your own slides that might be a little bit higher resolution?
No, if you could continue to share, Sally, that'd be great.
No worries at all.
Thanks for that introduction. Hi, everyone. So lovely to see lots of different names and regions popping up in the chat. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm calling in from Wonnarua country, and I'd like to pay my respects to all elders past and present, and all Aboriginal people, First Nations people here with us here today. So Wonnarua country is based, makes up part of the Hunter Valley, New South Wales. Okay, so I'm going to give a very high-level overview, and all the detail will come from Craig and David, who are leading this change on the ground in their regions. So as Sally said, I'm the Regional Programs Manager at Alliance, also known as the Renewable Energy Alliance. And as many of you know, across Australia, we are in the midst of an extraordinary change to our energy system. We're switching over from a fossil fuel-based system to one powered by renewable energies. And something I was really actually fascinated to learn is that we're 40% of the way there. You can fact check me and look up AEMO's site. But something that I don't think we hear as often as we should is that we are 40% powered by renewable energy sources, which is actually pretty incredible. We've got a way to go, but we have come a long way already. So just wanted to acknowledge that. I was going to play this video. What I might do is pop a link in the chat and you can have a look yourselves later. But basically, it's part of our Renewables Done Right series, and it gives a bit of an overview from a landholder perspective of what it's like to host large-scale renewable energy infrastructure. So whether that's wind farms, solar farms, new transmission lines, or battery storage. Part of the work that we do at Realliance is sharing the stories of landholders and leaders across the country who are already benefiting from this infrastructure. I'm not going to play it now. My connection's a bit dodged, but I'll share that link later. Okay, so at Realliance, we are all about a responsible and rapid shift to renewable energy, but we are also about making sure it is done right. And to us, that means centering rural and regional communities, building their strength and resilience as part of this energy shift we're experiencing. We have a policy team, a communications team, and an advocacy team, which I'm a part of. And they kind of do this work that you see up on the screen. So the advocacy team and the community engagement team, we listen to and build the capacity of rural and regional communities. Our organisation, as many others recognise across the country, local governments are at the heart of this shift. Local governments work at the nexus of communities and industry behaviour, and state government legislation and federal government legislation. And many are not well resourced to do that work. So part of our role is to help them build their capacity. We're a not-for-profit, and yeah, we're really supporting them to do the work they want to do in their regions. Our communications team focus on a shift of narrative. A lot of the media stories you see kind of highlight the impacts, of which there are some, and impacts are real for sure. But we don't hear a lot of stories about the leaders doing fantastic collaborative work in their regions, getting industry people together to make the shift more efficient and to help their communities understand what it's all about, as well as landholders who are benefiting, and community groups who are benefiting from this huge regional development investment that's happening across the country. Then the third team, the policy team, they influence government policy and industry practice. As an example, we recently put in a submission to the federal government inquiry on local government financial sustainability, and we argued, like I just said, the role of local government is definitely increasing. That the stuff they're being asked to do in this energy shift is huge, and many are not resourced to do that work. There are some good news stories of some things happening, but there's a long way to go in that space as well. So going back to the capacity building piece, I facilitate a national group of rural and regional leaders, many of whom are from local government and also regional development organisations too, First Nations organisations and community-based groups who are active in the shift. And I get these leaders together to help them share stories, talk about what's working really well, talk about how they've overcome some huge challenges, and then to, through that process, grow their confidence, grow their networks, and grow their knowledge so they're better able to do their work on the ground. So that can be anything from, sharing intel on developers, which can be very handy in negotiations, all the way through to, what's best practice community engagement. What does that look like? How can we do it in a resource constrained environment? What are these regional energy strategies I'm hearing about? How can we go about funding those and developing those for our community? So we get together monthly and discuss some of the big stuff, legacy housing, training and workforce development, supporting First Nations groups to lock in legacy outcomes. And as part of that network, last year we held our first summit, which was a huge success in Newcastle, New South Wales. It's basically builds off that same facilitated peer-to-peer support and learning and connection model. And I'm really pleased to announce today our tickets have gone live to coincide with this webinar to invite rural and regional leaders experiencing large-scale renewable energy in their regions. And this summit is happening in Toowoomba, Queensland, mid-September this year. So if you're a rural or regional leader, I'd love to hear from you. And that's it from me. I'm really looking forward to hearing from Craig and David. They're going to dive deep. David has been a long-term regional leaders member, network member, and Craig, I work with one of his councillors who's been a long-standing regional leaders network member as well. So looking forward to hearing from them and to getting into some discussion with all of you. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you so much, Thomasen. That was great. And I think we will hand straight over to Craig. Craig, take it away.
Thanks, Sally. Yeah, welcome everybody, and good morning for everyone in WA. Good afternoon for everyone over east. I'm coming to you from, I suppose, Noongar country. We've got a number of different language groups in our area. Baladong, Naji being, I suppose, the main two. But yeah, we'll kick on with it. All right, so in terms of Merredin, for those of you who don't know us, we're located approximately 250 k's east of Perth on the Great Eastern Highway within the Eastern Wheatbelt region of WA. I've been the CEO here for the last 20 months, coming down from the Pilbara. And a lot of these energy projects that I'm going to be discussing with you this morning or today have kind of already been in operation or have been substantially commenced. So, but we've still got a couple of things that are in the pipeline. So the Shire itself, as I said, is pretty much halfway between Perth and Kalgoorlie. We're the hub for commercial and government organisations servicing the central east sub-region of the Wheatbelt. We've got a population of just under 3,500 people calling Merredin home. And compared to other Wheatbelt towns and local government authorities, we've got a fairly stable population with a median age of 41, which is one of the youngest within the region. Agriculture dominates our local economy, and though we're more diversified than surrounding shires, the agriculture sector, I should say, contributed 20% or $137 million of the total economic output of the district of $665 million, with electricity and water services contributing $93 million. Wholesale trade is $51 million, transport $38 million, and construction another $38 million. We're the commercial and service hub for the Eastern Wheatbelt as I suppose, a thriving and diverse small and medium business sector, and we've got strong WA government presence. So we've got the likes of housing and works communities, we've got a trades training centre, we've got a research farm, things on those lines. Talking of the harvest and such, CBH, who are one of the main grain haulers or grain receivers up here, have had one of their best seasons ever, with 24 million tonnes of grain being received this harvest. So agriculture is massive here. For us, we're located on the high voltage transmission line between Collie and Kalgoorlie, so it links us to what they call the Southwest Interconnected System of Transmission Lines. We pride ourselves on being the innovator of the Wheatbelt and have embraced renewable energy projects. So we've got things like sun, wind farms, battery energy storage systems, and we've got a number of proponents who are knocking on the door. So in terms of solar, we've got Sun Energy, who've got a 113 megawatt system in place. Colgar Wind Farms has currently got 222 megawatts of generation, and they're looking to expand with their Tangerine Wind Farm project. And we've got Nomad Energy, who are currently at Nomad and Atmos, who are currently completing construction of their Merredin battery energy storage system, which is providing 400 megawatt hours of energy storage with a maximum power output of 100 megawatts per hour, depending on completion. And they're planning the next solar and battery operation, which they're proposing 642 megawatt hours of energy storage. And like I said, we've got other proponents knocking on the door, so we're fairly well entrenched in that renewable space. So in terms of Colgar, they're generating approximately 670 gigawatt hours per year, which is enough electricity to power approximately 136 WA family homes. During construction, Colgar employed around about 150 people over a period of 2 years, with the wind farm providing ongoing employment for 10 to 20 locally based staff who live in Merredin. They operate the Colgar Community Fund, or CCF, which currently provides funding to local initiatives, which is around about $120,000 per year, totalling around $1.6 million to date. So this is for various projects, and various community groups can apply for funding. And it's not just Merredin, we've also got the surrounding shires as well. Sun Energy Merredin Solar Farm consists of approximately 360,000 panels mounted on a single axis tracking system. It produces around about 132 megawatt DC power with an annual output of 281 gigawatt hours, generating enough power for around about 42,000 homes. With this one, it was a little bit different. So there was no community contribution or benefit paid by the proponents, as this was perceived by the council at the time of development as taking a bribe. So you've kind of got that, I suppose, different thought process now, given that we've got a lot of other proponents in the area. Atmos is currently building their BESS, which is approximately 20 k's out of town, and this was part funded through the Commonwealth Government's Capacity Investment Scheme with an associated agreement to support social licence commitments. Social licence commitments range from supporting our local high school to make students job ready, through to a First Nations commitment of $3.2 million to a community legacy fund of $400,000. The Community Benefit Fund doesn't commence until February 2028 and runs for the life of the project until 2048 at this stage. So what's working well? Diversification of the local economy is the benefit of that ongoing interest in development of these renewable energy projects within Merredin. The farms which host the wind turbine or turbines receive a payment from Colgar Renewables, meaning that they have a cash flows when harvest yields are not as good as what they are currently. Obviously, we've been impacted by the live sheep ban, which has impacted our community, with many farmers now running significantly reduced flocks or no sheep at all. So again, it's kind of balancing that out. However, it's also a story of the haves and the have-nots, because those with wind farms will benefit financially, whereas if you're the neighbour to the side who doesn't have a turbine, you pretty much miss out. We've got positive ongoing relationships with both Colgar, Nomad Energy and Atmos Renewables. We've got representation on the Colgar Community Fund to provide local input with their local staff and Perth-based staff when we're assessing applications for support. So it's not just the company determining where the funding goes, we've got some input into that. Nomad and Atmos have already provided $30,000 in initial support for the local community projects to promote environmental sustainability, which is a great boost to get their name and brand out to the community, and was very well received by Merredin. Both Colgar and Atmos provide updates to the Shire Council as to where their projects are at, and also host community forums and events. And Colgar, as we said, employs several local people on an ongoing basis, with each of the projects having some form of local procurement during the construction. The Shire of Merredin is slightly different to some of our friends around us, where we've got a differential rating system, where we've got properties who host these renewables are charged a slightly different rating system to a standard rural property. Due to limitations within the Local Government Act, we're actually restricted on what rates they can levy, or we can levy, I should say. However, this does bring an additional $80,000 or so of rate to income compared to general rural property. We've got good local engagement with the community and with the renewable partners, noting that WA Government does not mandate social impact assessment, community engagement, nor the development of ongoing community benefit funds, employment and training targets and local content outcomes. So I suppose we're becoming wiser to the impacts and the contribution to our region of the energy transition, and look to strike a better deal for everybody. In terms of what can be done better, unlike many of our eastern states counterparts, WA does not have any frameworks or provisions around mandatory community benefit. We've got guidelines which have only just come into place, but there's nothing mandated. So we're seeking improved co-design of community benefit funds. The likes of Queensland's planning structure provides proponents with the ability to undertake social impact assessment, which incorporates community benefit. And in Victoria, you've got the likes of the designated renewable energy zones, which deliver economic and social benefits to regional communities. The Shire of Merredin, like many local authorities who are hosting these renewable projects in WA, have developed community benefit policies. However, because they're a council policy and not something that's driven by the state, what we're finding is these are generally being disregarded by state planning bodies when the projects are approved. So we're looking to continue to lobby the state government for a fairer go and see these have these mandated to provide clarity for local communities and proponents alike. Some of the grants we found are very vague in terms of the federal grants, as well as the timeframes that are associated with those. So an example of that would be we've asked about local content in teleconference with grant funding bodies. For us, we've assumed that local content would be the Wheatbelt region of WA, or worst case Perth, broader WA. However, it seems that local content is pretty much anywhere in Australia. So it kind of defeats the purpose of, I suppose, that local local content won't include that term. Similarly, we've got local Aboriginal businesses who've been expecting work but have become offended when when Aboriginal businesses from other areas have been awarded contracts. So we've had them come down from the likes of Geraldton, well away from even Perth. So what we're seeking is clarity around some of these terms and to enable the community to better understand what's being asked for. While it's great to host renewables, the local community as a whole experienced a couple of issues during the building and construction phase for larger projects, which haven't been positive in the past. With the larger projects, we've not so much seen a boom and bust cycle, rather in a construction and operation phase. Like many towns in the region and in the regions within WA, we've got issues with housing. What will happen is that severe lack of accommodation in terms of both rental accommodation and short-term/hotel accommodation impacts everybody. So with the last construction phase of Colgar, when it was first constructed, we saw many residents being forced out of town due to increases in rents, and together with the contractors, residents and others, we were actually camping out in people's farm sheds in sort of third world conditions almost, because that was the only accommodation available. So we need to become better at managing these impacts on the local community, including housing, services, support, supporting that drive in, drive out workforce especially. We're also exploring and leveraging proposed community investment. So an example of this would be, we've got discussions with proponents who are looking to house workers in temporary camps for short duration, but designing these in such a way that once you take away the camp, the land that's remaining in the services could be converted to residential purposes, for example. So for us, another issue is that capacity to, I suppose, assess and manage some of these projects. We're fairly lucky in that we've got fairly good, sufficient resources to support the renewable energy projects. However, we are aware there's a number of smaller shires that can become overwhelmed when proponents come to them with a development application for a renewable project, from planning phases through to community consultation, through to community benefit funds. A lot of smaller councils can get lost in I suppose, this big thing that's at their door. And again, what we're seeking is leadership in terms of frameworks, guidance, planning support from the state government, but making sure that each local government where they're hosting one of these projects, we've got input and a seat at the table rather than just being pushed to the sidelines. In terms of what we're doing, we're part of a group of local governments throughout the whole Wheatbelt region who are either hosting or will be hosting renewable energy projects within the districts. Each of us are supportive of renewable energy projects, and we're very open about that, whether this be wind, solar or battery systems. Together with the WA Local Government Association, we're advocating to the state government to include provision for community benefit funding within state planning frameworks to provide clarity for proponents and the community alike. It's not a cash grab. What we're wanting is to ensure that benefits are locally administered and tied to impact, and that these are legacy things where it's not just a flash in the pan. We want something that's long duration to that the whole community can support and again delivers for the proponents as well. We're also very strongly support renewable energy targets for both the Commonwealth and state government. And what we're asking for is what we think is fairly simple. The communities that host these projects must be genuine partners, not afterthoughts. We'll continue to provide feedback to the state government on their guidelines and renewable energy code. We've developed our own policy, as I said, based on the state's guidelines, which supports consistency between local governments hosting renewable energy projects and to provide that clarity to proponents in the community. And we support active involvement and engagement with proponents in the development and management of these funds. So we're not just looking to take the funds and look after ourselves. We want their involvement and the community's involvement because it's a shared benefit for everybody. We're open to genuine dialogue with proponents and actively seek to meet with project managers and proponents to assist with bringing their projects to fruition. We've got an open invitation to all proponents to come along to council briefings, to address councillors, to seek feedback, support their consultation, and we can help deliver their messaging to our community. Harbour sees a significant amount of truck movements along major freight routes within Merredin, which are the same ones that most proponents will be using for turbines, blades, battery systems, etc. And so with the likes of the Atmos battery energy storage system, we engaged with them early, and as a result, their program for battery delivery is outside the harvest season to minimise congestion on our roads and freight networks, and that reduces driver and community frustration. So it's that opening up that dialogue and communication reaps rewards. We're aware of potential impacts on our community from construction operations and are investigating holding a facilitated forum funded by the Shire. We're looking to get the main proponents in the room together with community leaders and other community key stakeholders to discuss community benefit funds and legacy opportunities, to see where we can have collaboration on the likes of accommodation, access to services, demand on local businesses, and transport and logistics. Where obviously there's things that are commercially sensitive or commercially confidentiality. But some of the proponents will be open to a point, but they will play their cards close to their chest. But providing an opportunity for them to at least discuss some of these issues can reduce the impacts on our community and maintain support for the projects. So we're looking to continue to work with proponents, the community and the state government to achieve positive outcomes which benefit WA as a whole, and keep promoting the renewables in the area. So thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Craig. That was really great to hear. And I can see already there are a couple of curious questions in the chat. Thomasen, I can't see David so far. David, are you around? And if not, I might ask you, Thomasen, to give him a call and we can maybe go through some questions for Craig while you do that. Is that all right?
Yeah.
David, if you're here, speak up so I can see you, because so far I haven't been able to spot you, but you might be joining from a phone or somebody else's account, perhaps. Okay, look, while we wait for David, let's go to these questions for Craig in the chat. So Craig, you mentioned earlier a differential rating system as an additional source of income for your council. I think you said it generated around $80,000. Has that been challenging for the landowners to absorb the additional cost, or is it actually passed on to the project proponents?
So we don't actually have oversight of the agreements between the landowners and Colgar Wind Farm, but what we are aware of is the payments are being made. No one's actually objected to them, but also within the Local Government Act here, we've actually got a ceiling where we cannot just go out and charge whatever we want for these farms. We've got to rein it into literally what's double the lowest rateable amount. So because we don't charge our normal residential properties and rural properties massive amounts of money or cents in the dollar, it's a nice little bit of cream on top of the cake. But in real terms, compared to the likes of a proper community investment fund or community benefit fund, it's a drop in the ocean.
And Craig, is that when you sort of justify that to your ratepayers, is that justified as a way of resourcing council to actually be able to help do all this work that you're doing? Is that kind of how you frame it?
That's pretty much how we describe it. Because obviously having these farms, these powers and such on the farms, it is impacting on our local infrastructure. So we still have to maintain roads, and obviously we've got additional usage of those. So again, that's pretty much the response we provide is literally they're getting a benefit with an additional impact on our infrastructure. Gotcha. So that's why there's that slight extra charge. And again, spread over a number of farms in the area, it's not a massive increase in terms of rates. And from what I understand, most of the farmers will get a decent income from it, which either Colgar will pay the additional rate direct, or there'll be some form of financial compensation either way.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. And another question for you, Craig, from Narelle. Do your communities have reliable electricity and capacity? Is one of the things that you're looking to improve to make arrangements with developers to provide and or subsidise the cost of local electricity provision, given that the developers may be focused on sending electricity to other parts of the state? Interesting question.
A very good question. So I suppose it has been discussed, but with power in WA, it's all pretty much managed by the state. So I know there's other local authorities in the region who've had solar projects, and they've received solar panels and such onto some of their facilities as a means of, I suppose, reducing that power consumption. For us, it has been something that we've discussed internally, but again, because everything's all legislated and managed by the state, it's very hard to get that foot in the door to say, we're hosting the power generation. Can we get a cheaper power source?
Yep, makes sense.
So something would be fantastic, but I think we'd be pushing things uphill a bit.
Yeah, fair enough. Just before I come to Veronica's question, I'll just check in with Thomasen. How did you go with David?
I didn't go well with David, unfortunately,
Okay.
but Veronica Terry, who has just asked a question, she's
Yes,
from,
that's right.
yeah, I've just checked in with Veronica quickly,
Yeah.
and she is, I'll get her to introduce herself, but she's from
Yeah.
Tassie, from the Cradle Coast Authority, and she's happy to
Yeah.
give us a 5-minute kind of overview of how the Cradle Coast is dealing with the renewable energy shift in their region, what they're hoping to get out of it, what's working well, and some challenges they're facing at the moment.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Veronica. And we might just go to those questions before we hand over to Veronica, but I'll stop sharing because I don't think we're going to be needing David's slides for the moment. So Craig, just a couple more questions for you. Any tips to share regarding mechanisms that are available to councils to ensure that the positive conversations between councils and proponents regarding legacy are genuinely implemented?
Ooh, I suppose for us, we've got a local council plan or strategic document, which we endorsed last year. So that has a number of projects and I suppose things that are wanted by the community. So generally when we discuss with the proponents, so for example, whether it be Colgar or Nomad and Atmos, we'll have something to actually provide to them in terms of, from a community consultation perspective, rather than you going out and doing it all again, we've already done that for you pretty much in terms of, what are the community's desires, wants, needs in terms of things that will support our community to support or assist to support your development. So we will work with them, and it's having that open, frank dialogue, and engaging with them early rather than literally at the stage where they're just putting the development application in. So for me, it's a case of continuing that open, honest communication. It's having something to go to them with rather than just a pie in the sky wish list. It's something that we've actually got data on from our community engagement. And then they see the benefit in that. And again, we're helping them along because it's what the community wants. So.
Great, thank you, Craig. Before I do any more questions, we've actually just had David join, so we've got an embarrassment of riches here. David, are you ready to go, or would you like us to hand over to Veronica for a few minutes while you get settled? Not sure if David's connected to audio yet. So, Veronica, if we could, there you are.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute. Look, I'm sorry I'm late in. I had
no worries.
IT delays.
No worries at all.
Veronica first, that's fine. Go.
Okay, all right. Veronica, over to you for a few minutes, and then in the meantime, I'll get David's slides up.
Terrific. Yep. All right. Well, I can keep this. I can keep this short. So I'm based in the Cradle Coast region, so that's the northwest coast of Tasmania. We've got $15 billion worth of projects in the pipeline, which is big for us, but I appreciate that's not a lot of projects in comparison to other parts of Australia. We've had a lot of good luck, and what's working well for us is we've got fantastic open dialogue with our proponents, which we really appreciate. We've been able to get our proponents to a round table, about 4 round tables now, and have open and productive conversations. But then the tricky part is how do we convert those good conversations and good intentions into something that's genuinely implementable? And how do we create accountability? Because we're not the Australian government, we're not the Tasmanian government. We can see that there are things that should be done to plan for the region that aren't happening. And one of the things that we're really keen to see is just a cumulative impact assessment to be done for our region, which doesn't seem to be on the radar at the moment, which is super disappointing. So we're really excited to have the roundtables, our proponents on board. And as a result of that, we're actually finalising now what we're calling, it's an opportunity report. That's how we're referring to it within our organisation, but it'll be called Local Power, Local Prosperity. And we're finalising that now to try and deliver a more balanced perspective with the good and the bad that's going to come with renewable energy, and hopefully inspire some more balanced and ambitious conversations within our community. So we'll just stay tuned and we'll see how that one goes.
Great. Thanks so much, Veronica. Thanks
That's
for
all right.
stepping in there. And David, if you're ready to go, I'll hand over to you now.
Yes, I am. Look, I think I'll probably extemporise a bit on this. If you can go to the next slide, please, Sally, or have I got control on that?
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Here we are.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, first off, this disclaimer, I dare not speak on behalf of the council. This is a personal perspective on Central Highlands Council. Central Highlands Council is immediately to the south of Veronica's area. So we're the Highlands here. I'll just get rid of something on my screen. So we're the second largest LGA in Tasmania. Incredible, small population, 2,700. It actually fell, the population fell last year. And I've got fellow councillors who are still stridently anti-development. Anyway, it's amazing geography. We go from sea level to 1460 metres. So 4 distinct regions, of which 2 are really very highly suited to wind farming in particular. Agriculture is dominant, and I find it very hard to get past the farmers who on the council who don't want to do anything except agricultural focused stuff. But tourism and personal health care. Reportedly here, the ratio of the super wealthy to others is the highest in the state. It's like a feudal society. A handful of really, really wealthy farmers, and then a huge gap, almost no middle class at the bottom, people on minimum wages as farm labourers in particular. Thanks, Sally. Climate change impact. Big one here is dry lightning strikes in the remoting areas starting bushfires back in 2019. That almost took out my own premises here. I live right on top of Tasmania, 1,160 metres, and we had 6 weeks of threat by bushfires, and it's radically changed the environment up here. As elsewhere, the droughts, the floods, the fires impact on agriculture. These are huge drains on local government services. And I was thinking on my way when I was driving yesterday about impacts when it comes to emergency response. The rule is that if you are, let's say we have a washout on a road due to climate change. If we put council resources in there for 15 hours a day, we don't get any state help. It's got to be independent contractors. So organisationally, we have to have those guys lined up in time so we get the consent first and then we get them funded for the emergency work. It is administratively very difficult. Around here, we have increased diversity in horticulture, but the big impact, and this is the climate change impact, a fellow councillor and a farmer says the last 10 years have been marked by what they called failed autumns. That is to say, a failure of autumn rains that would ordinarily give them pasture to carry them through over winter. It hasn't happened. For those of you who are aware, over the last 3 years, there's been a large upper warm air mass over Antarctica that has displaced all the cold air below. And so we've had very, very dramatic freeze events here. Minus 15 for a whole week on the Central Plateau in 2024. Personally, I spent about $14,000 recovering from that, from all the blow-ups. So we're getting cool and cold summers. And this is a dramatic disruption to agriculture and horticulture. So this year, the cherry crops, for instance, have come on 2 to 3 weeks later than normal. And so the labour that was often in place, being recruited in place, presuming an earlier start, were actually held over for those weeks. So it's dramatically impacted on horticulture. Council responses, I find professional staff have a fantastic service orientation, and maybe I'm biased because I worked for Shire Council for 10 years, thereabouts, one stage. We've had major and very expensive adjustments to infrastructure, roads, bridges, culverts, pipes that used to be that size and now had to be that size. So we're well developed emergency processes by council to respond to emergency is well developed for fire and flood, much less so for freezing events. So in 2024, on the Central Plateau here, there was not a single functioning public toilet. All of them had blown up with the freezing. The government support for renewable energy development. Presently, we have one wind farm established, 144 meg, and that's Cattle Hill. Another approved, 240 meg. In fact, I think it's 300 meg. The latest newsletter I saw said 300 meg. A solar farm's approved, 250 meg. A 450 meg plant very close to DA application. Two other projects are in process. One of them doesn't have a budget, but in essence, we can see 12 years of continuous construction work here, establishing all these plants. Thanks, Sally. Challenges we're working to improve. We have a council of 9. Which is state governments have telegraphed is probably going to be reduced to 5 in June this year, and I don't like my chances in a council of 5. One fellow councillor is very strong supporter of building a nuclear power plant in Tasmania, but it has to be at Bell Bay on the north coast outside of our LGA. Another vowing councillor said in open session they would never vote in support of a wind farm. And both those stances are on the public record. State support, yes, as I alluded to earlier, to council and emergencies is really problematic. Emergency funds for plant use, but not for the operators. Moving large populations in fire and freeze events is very, very problematic. And federal funds flow to local government about 0.5 of the budget versus 1% in previous decades. In other words, the federal support to local government is in decline. My pet interest, and Veronica knows this very well, is that renewable energy plants don't pay rates, but they receive all of the local government benefits of being established here. And credit to Veronica and some other colleagues across Tasmania. What we went after was PILAW implementation, which is by far the most superior way of getting rates type payments out of renewable energy. The government instead dished up AAV, which is really, really deficient. So we're billing the landowners, not the operators. Even though the output of these renewable energy plants will remain the same for 25, 30, 40 years, their book value will decline and so will their rateable value. And so it's a really unsatisfactory solution. I have personally lobbied so many pollies in the government here, and we're getting nowhere. And supposedly the state government, Veronica will know this, supposedly the state government is working on PILAW. We know they're not. So yes, the local government reforms this year will likely reduce council numbers from 9 to 5, and then we're going to have probably a dominance of anti-renewable representatives. We've already seen a series of DAs that we've rejected on absolutely indefensible grounds, and they incur major, major legal costs that we never recover, but they're politically popular. Thanks, Sally.
Great. Thank you so much, David. Really appreciate that. I'm going to stop sharing now so we can see people's faces a little bit more.
And any questions, of course, please.
Yeah. So we've had a few questions for Craig, and we can come back to a couple more in the chat, but let's check in if there are questions for David or Thomasen, or even Veronica. Where are you? There you are. Let's have a look what's in the chat. John asks, how is the Northwest Tasmanian community generally responding to the Marinus link? I heard there were landowners not welcoming this project.
Shall I take
David
that one,
or Veronica?
Yeah,
You take it on.
Yeah,
You're closer to it than I am, Veronica. Yeah, by far.
Yeah, and it's a good question. And it depends which pocket sort of you're in. So Marinus Link can also be referred to as Project Marinus. Sorry to bore you with definitions, but Project Marinus is Marinus Link and the transmission lines that are required, or the transmission lines that take it to the network. So the transmission lines is Tas Networks, Northwest Transmission Development, and Marinus Link is the cable that goes across Bass Strait. So if you're speaking specifically about Marinus Link is unpopular in some circles because it is seen as being a way of selling the good power that we have in Tasmania to the mainland and not getting any benefits in return, which doesn't take into consideration the fibre optic cable capacity, which is essential for our infrastructure. We've got very aged fibre optic undersea cables in Tasmania that are past their replacement date, and that makes us highly vulnerable. But also we actually need more renewable energy in Tasmania. We don't have enough to meet our needs. And while as a state we can be proud of the fact that we've got a wonderful supply of hydropower, we still need more for our industry. We've still got industry running on coal. We still need to decarbonise our cars and trucks. So there are a few underinformed narratives that play into some lines that have been sort of well shared, but not probably as well informed as they could be.
Great, thanks Veronica for taking that one. I've got a question for David from Eleanor. How active is the LGA in assisting to advocate for local government's equitable position in this renewable energy transition?
We have here the Local Government Association of Tasmania, and again, this is a personal perspective, but I think it's very dominated by the major bodies, Launceston, Devonport, Hobart. Can I say, just adding to what Veronica, I endorse everything Veronica says. We are facing, because of so many years of poor rainfall, we've got a real crunch in the hydro production, dramatically drained, and it doesn't help. And I think this contributes, in that northwest area, Veronica, so many thousands of Tasmanians are enrolled in Facebook University with the major and the conservative media. And I get excited to me some ridiculous things in relation to Marinus, in relation to renewable energy generally. Look, and reverting to the question, I'm not that convinced. Actually, there's a name you'd know, is Ben Morris in Legat, I think is generally working for us, Veronica, but otherwise I don't think there's a lot of momentum there. Thanks.
Thanks, David. And I'm just scrolling back through the chat and I see a question which I said that you've answered some questions, Craig. I'm not sure we've answered this one, but tell me if I've missed it. Marion asked, how are the community benefit funds being managed in Merredin? Is it by the council or a governance structure involving the community and the council? And how does the community see the funds being allocated to council priority, or do they want to have some say over how it's applied?
So thanks for the question. I suppose I can answer it in two parts. So at the moment, we've got the Colgar Community Fund, which I suppose was put in place when Colgar first constructed the wind farm. So on that, you've got a committee which I sit on. So I'm the sole community representative, and you've got a number of Colgar staff members and management people, both from Perth and out in Merredin. They are very open in terms of going to the community to say, look, the community out here knows the fund exists. It's been going for a number of years, and we're getting to a stage now where I suppose we're being more specific in terms of what we'd like to see community benefit used for, or the funding used for. So as I say, it's not footy jumpers and scoreboards anymore. It's something that's actually going to give a more positive benefit. So for example, we had an application from a new park run in Merredin. I think the community fund provided things $2,500 towards a defibrillator so they could actually operate, and that's now something that will attract 40 to 50 people on a weekend, every weekend, to go out and either run or walk around our Merredin Peak area. So there's that more broader community benefit rather than just, as I said, something flash in the pan or a scoreboard or something of those lines. So it's actually bringing the community together. With the likes of the community benefit fund policy that we've got in place, as I said, it's not mandated. We would like to see, we and a number of other local governments who've applied the same policies, would like to see these put in place and mandated. Within the policy itself, what we'd be looking at doing is setting up a committee of the proponents, key community members and councillors. So everyone has a seat at the table, and then we work out within I suppose, the terms of reference, what can this funding be used for? So as I said, I want to see legacy items where, the community gets a long-term benefit out of it, so that, the kids and the grandkids of residents today get that benefit, rather than just something that's a flash in the pan that sort of suits here and now. So if provided, I think that suits the strategic direction of each of these proponents, to me, I see that as a positive. But I want everyone at the table. Everyone who needs that voice should be at the table. For us also, like I said during my presentation, we've got our council plan, which has a number of different items and areas that, people want to see investment within the community. So like most regional areas within WA, sport is a massive thing that brings the community together. It has, social, health, mental well-being implications. So some of the things are surrounding that. Others are, again, how do we set up the community for success for, again, generational change, not just a flash in the pan.
Great, thank you, Craig. A quick one from you, David, before we start wrapping up.
I promise quick. I'm the master of quick brief. Couple of things. One, Craig, with reference to your experience, I think one of the traps when local governments is taking on the community funding stuff is to make sure that it's indexed. So Cattle Hill started paying out as a community fund 120,000 a year 6 years ago. That 120,000 then is probably worth 100,000 now by virtue of inflation. So making sure it's indexed, and indexed to a decent index, such as not the national, price of coffee one, but construction type index. Thanks.
Great, thank you, David. And what we might do now, because we've got a few things to share with you as we wrap up, I might come back right at the end to see if there were any questions that we missed, in case we have a few moments before people go. But I did see one question about the summit. And so I want to recap on that one. But just before people start dispersing, I want to just make sure I say a big thank you to all of our speakers today. But don't go away, because if you are interested in that summit, Thomasen, maybe you can just briefly speak to the question about how you might support regional leaders to attend.
Yeah, thank you. So look, it is a bit of an exclusive event. We work really hard to keep some groups of people who are really interested in attending out, and that's because we want it to be a really safe, open discussion spot for rural and regional leaders who are experiencing large-scale renewable energy in their backyards. So when I say leader, that can be elected officials, that can be leadership team, CEOs, general managers, etc. But we also include the staff, the strategic planners, the senior economic development officers, etc., who are really driving change in their organisations. And we do offer financial support packages. So we know that many people need support to pay for their accommodation and travel to get to the summit, and there is an expression of interest form I've posted in the chat if you're interested in getting that support. We do share all the themes after the summit too, so all those really important stakeholders who couldn't come to the event, at least they've got, something afterwards. They can see what went down at the summit, what we talked about, and the general themes that came out.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Thomasen. And I have just reshared those links as well. But I do also want to let you know that we've got a few more webinars coming up. As I mentioned, we do this about once a month, and I particularly wanted to mention the one that we're doing next month, which is a climate risk briefing for councils and particularly council leaders, but all council staff as well. And we've got Charlotte Turner with us, who is a lawyer specialising in climate risk, including legal and financial liability. So if that's something that you've been wondering about, we get questions about this all the time. So if you're interested in that, please do come along to that. I will put the link in the chat in a moment. And also, I'm assuming it's okay with all the speakers if we pass on your presentation. Is that okay? Yeah, so you'll get all of these links in the presentation that comes out afterwards. Also, if you're an officer here today and you're not on our base camp, I highly recommend you join it, because we've got over 600 officers from around the country chatting on there every day about how we get our jobs done and sharing resources and supporting each other. It's a really great community. So email me or jump on our contact page if you're not part of that. And I mentioned that there are some other ways to connect with us. You can use our website as a starting point, but you can join our base camp, become a member, join our mailing list, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn. That's new, so please do follow us on LinkedIn. And we've got some other upcoming events as well, apart from our regular webinars. We've got our senior leader training coming up. We're probably just going to run one round this year. That's starting in July. So if you're interested in that, do get in soon, because we do have already people registering for that. And a very early flag that it will be the 10th anniversary of the first ever climate emergency declaration in December this year. So we're going to be organising some special activities around that. Also, we're running our regular climate cafes. In fact, we've got one on later today. If you're desperate to get something off your chest, if that's you, then send me an email or sign up for one of the future ones. And finally, if you happen to be within reach of Northern Victoria, there is a great face-to-face forum happening in Benalla this Thursday that's being put on by our friends at Goulburn Mallee Climate Alliance, and it's about partnering in nature-based investment for resilient communities. Think offsetting, local offsetting, and more. So that brings us to the end. I'm sure that most people will have to jump off. Just quickly checking if there was any burning questions left over that we didn't quite get to. I can see that people have been answering questions in the chat. Thank you for that. I think we'll probably have to leave it there, but as I said, I will send out all of the resources that we mentioned today in my follow-up email. And so I just want to finish by saying a really big thank you to Thomasen, David and Craig for being with us today, also for Veronica for stepping in as well, and a big thank you to everybody for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in another webinar soon. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cool.